Hello, welcome to the Empowered Marriage Podcast. My name is Helen Harrison and I'm the host of this podcast, and you are listening to episode 72. Yes, you are. So fantastic to have you on board. So the Empowered Marriage, it is all about creating closer connections. It's all about intimacy, it's passion, it's fun, and all those lovely things that create a marriage and a relationship, and for it to go long term. So today's podcast, I've really lasered in because I am talking about just one tool that I believe is absolutely crucial and so important. And so podcast 72 is the best communication tool for power struggles. So in relationships and in marriages, for them to go long term is being able to have really good communication skills. It's, would you agree, to be able to talk openly, to be able to talk transparently, for you to be able to be your own person, to have your own identity, to be able to say what you feel and what you think, and you're coming from a place of truthfulness, and you trust your partner so that they can hear what you've got to say, and they're not going to have strong reactions or have a song and dance about what's going on for you. So that's why I'm talking about this one, because why do you think people come in for counselling and coaching? It's because there's a power struggle and they want to be right. That can be a fair bit of what's going on. So this tool is a tool that is hugely helpful, particularly if you can do it regularly, and perhaps begin daily for a little while, just for it to start to become a bit of a regular thing in your relationship. So I always come back to, in an empowered marriage, you have really effective communication. First of all, the communication you have with yourself. You've got transparency. You understand your inner world. You have a closeness with yourself. You have a love for yourself. You actually like yourself. And you like your shadow side. You like your light side. And you've over the years begun to, I suppose, peel back those layers. You would have heard me talk on previous podcasts. We are a bit like an onion, and we have many layers, our false layers, a false self, or a part of us that we created so that we could be loved. However, we get to a point in our life, and I see it with people I work with, and I've seen it in myself, where we want to be authentic. We want to be real. We want to be true. And to be able to do that, particularly in a relationship, you need to be transparent. You need to be honest, and you need to be honest with yourself first. Often what we do, and I've been like this in the past, and I am just trying so much these days to be really as authentic and real as I can, because why? Because it's coming home to yourself. At the end of the day, the only one that can make you happy and make you feel connected and peaceful and calm inside is yourself. Nobody else can do that for you. You've got to do that within yourself. And so it's a lot of it is stillness. It's bringing in the stillness and going inside and connecting with yourself. Anyway, I've gone so off track, which is what I can do. I go on this rampage. Anyway, so podcast 72, the best communication tool for power struggles. So what do you think it is? It is a talking stick. So what is a talking stick? So I'm just going to use this pen for now, but as a couple, I'd love you to find something symbolic that is, it could be a statue, it could be a candle, it could be a branch from out in the bush where you went for a bushwalk and you grabbed this branch. It doesn't really matter, but it's something symbolic, and we're going to call it the talking stick. What the talking stick does is it's it's a way to bring in integrity and respect. So many of us live stressful, busy lives, and what can begin to happen, because we don't slow down long enough and we're not listening, there begins to be a power struggle. So this talking stick is a communication tool. It's like it ensures a code of conduct, of respect, and each of you have turns with the talking stick, and whoever is holding the talking stick, it is their turn to speak, and the other person listens quietly and respectfully, and then you swap over. Sounds really simple, doesn't it? It can be. So I would encourage you to just begin with 5 minutes, and what it is you share what's on your mind, how you're feeling, and if you're on the receiving end, so your partner's got the talking stick, what it is you just listen. You listen with no judgment, and you will get a turn. However, you may often in the past come up with different ideas or suggestions or solutions. You're not really listening. You're not listening to understand. You're preparing for you to talk, and at times you may interrupt. You may take over. You may not even be overly interested. So what the talking stick does is, your partner has the talking stick, you listen. And when did you really last listen? We often don't fully listen. We're often busy doing something else. You might be on your phone or cooking dinner or emptying the dishwasher. When did you last as a couple sit down, sit opposite each other, and as you really look at each other, so look each other in the eyes, and so when you're listening to understand, they call it the eyes of the soul, when you're actually really listening. And so this is the opportunity for your partner to talk, for them to be transparent. So they might talk about what's worrying them. They might talk about the struggles in the household. They might talk about little Tommy and how Tommy was rude today and the struggles that that person had with that. You're not coming up with any solutions. You are listening to understand. And once your 5 minutes is up, if you're an introvert, 5 minutes may seem like a really long time. If you're an extrovert, 5 minutes is not anywhere enough. But I think what I've learned over the years is 5 minutes is quite a helpful place to begin. So, what begins to happen? This is what I've seen and this is what I've heard, is you may begin to feel some respect for your partner, because you're actually listening and hearing them. You're actually not coming up with solutions to fix the problem. You're actually just listening, and you're stepping into your partner's reality for a moment. You might actually learn something. And what the talking stick can do is actually really slow the conversation down. And then what you do is you swap. You then have a go. You talk about what's worrying you. You talk about the stresses you're under. What happens in this day and age, in this 21st century, there's a bit of a power struggle over who's the tiredest, of who's doing the most. Well, I must be doing the most because I'm earning the income and you're only working part-time. Power struggle. I've done night shift, or I was up with the kids. There's constant power struggles. Working with couples, I ask them, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And if you want to be right, that is going to cause a bit of grief and also a power struggle, which is not healthy and is not going to encourage and help a empowered marriage and a long-term marriage, is what I'm trying to say. So After you've both had a go for 5 minutes, I then want you to perhaps, if you choose to, is have a discussion of what it was like for you. Take turns discussing the talking stick and what it was like. The observations that you noticed, how you felt. What do you think are the benefits of this regular habit of a talking stick? It's have turns and discuss that, and also how often would you like to bring this into your relationship? Do you want to bring it in on a regular basis? What would be the benefits of it? All of this is to really ask yourself good quality questions, but also your relationship. Because in relationships, the biggest breakdown is the breakdown of communication. And when the communication starts to go south, what happens is you can begin to get triggered quite easily. I've talked about this a lot, but I want to talk about it again. We can go into either fight or flight or freeze. And this is a survival mechanism, and dependent on how much trauma you've lived as a child, dependent on how much of your needs you got met as a child, will be dependent on how quickly you get triggered to go into the fight or flight or freeze. In fact, let me talk a little bit more about this. So the fight is that when you are feeling unloved, when you're feeling unheard, when you're feeling unvalidated, when you feel like you're not being seen, you go into the fight and you become quite vocal. And the adult you can leave, and you might become like a teenager. You're yelling, you're carrying on. So that's the fight part of you. You may go into the flight, where I'm out of here. Often couples who come in, particularly if they're driven by counselling more than coaching, they come in when they're in the crisis mode, and they may go into the flight quite regularly. I'm out of here. So in their head, they're out of here, but also they may actually move their body, go into another room, go out of the house and actually leave. Then we have the freeze. So when the communication breaks down, you may go into the freeze, which is where you just shut down. You actually don't have a voice, you can't speak up. I'm sure that you can relate to all of these, or at least one of them. In a relationship, when we are being triggered because the communication has broken down, we will go into fight or flight or freeze. And this is where I work with couples to get in and under the stress cycle, because you've got to remove that stress cycle. You both have to take ownership of your fight and flight and freeze. If you think it's your partner that's triggering you, it is actually for you to heal that. It's for you to go to those wounded parts of you and do some work around that. If you heal them, then your communication is going to improve, and also you're not going to go to the fight and flight and freeze. So it's understanding that trigger response in you, and this is why I can't express enough how important this talking stick is, how important it is. Because if you can check in with each other daily, talk about all the incidentals, when the bigger stuff comes in. Also, if you feel like you have been triggered, you may be in the freeze. A lot of people go to the freeze, where you just shut down, you got a wall. When it's your turn to have the talking stick, your partner's going to know that you're in the freeze, because you're not going to be able to talk. However, you have decided as a couple to make an agreement to use this talking stick. So if you're in this freeze, it's like it's pushing you to come out. If you've been triggered big time, it's very, very difficult to come out, but then that's where it may be your driving force to go and seek some support. This is where seeing a coach, seeing a counsellor, seeing a psychologist, to get in and under your fight and flight, so that you can regularly use this talking stick. It's going to help you enormously. Look, a talking stick is a really great way for you to assess that, oh, gosh, I get triggered regularly. Oh, I've got some unhealed stuff that I need to look at. And I believe we all do. We all have wounded parts of us. You know, even if you're the most amazingly present parent, you know, I'm the mum of 3 sons. I know I have passed on a lot of my wounds and the wounded parts of me that I had not yet healed. I've passed them on to my children. That will be my children's responsibility to heal them and for them to go and seek support around that. And as we get older and the more inner work that we do, the more we notice when we've been triggered, the more we are able to attend to ourselves, the more we're then able to self-regulate ourselves, so that in time you aren't actually even going to need the talking stick, because you know the value of connecting as a couple, of talking about your inner world, talking about that you may have been triggered, you're in the fight and flight or freeze, and that you are doing some work around it, or you're going to do some work around it, to how to heal that, to get yourself back out into the adult. Look, I really hope that this has made sense. It can just seem so daunting when you're in a relationship and you may be floating along really, really well, doing great as a couple. However, you may be under a little bit of stress, your partner may, and before you know it, you're starting to trigger each other. So if you have the constant talking stick, you have that regularly, then you know that you have got something that you can come back to. For some couples, they may only do it 3 times a week. That's fine. You've got to find as a couple what works for you. So I encourage you, have a conversation. I encourage you to talk about the benefits to you, how it would support you. You know, if you're in a relationship where you're with a partner who may not be overly interested, you just got to go gently. You can't force them. None of this you can force on them. And I'd encourage you to give it a go, have a practice, see how it works, and then from there you could reduce it back. Or if you are in a period of stress, continue to use it regularly. So anyway, I hope this has been really helpful. You can find this on a blog. If you go to my website, powerofchange.com.au, you'll find it in the blog there. Print it out. That can be really helpful, giving you the different ideas of how to do this. Would love to get some feedback. Let me know when you've used the talking stick. Are you using the talking stick, or perhaps you just don't like the idea of it at all? But anyway, any feedback is fantastic. I'd love to hear from you. So anyway, on that note, I'll love you and leave you, and I look forward to very soon doing another podcast for the Empowered Marriage. And so enjoy living in your empowered marriage, in your empowered life. And until next time, have a great life.